Alrighty, so today we're going to be looking at iconography, specifically through the lens of sporting iconography used for the Olympic Games. We'll start by touching on what iconography is and how it's been used in various Olympic Games leading up to now. We'll then dive in to try and emulate some of these styles using Adobe Illustrator. So let's get started. Now, iconography has a few different meanings. It mostly refers to the study and interpretation of visual images and symbols used in art, design, and culture. However, in design, iconography refers to the collection of icons, pictograms, or symbols used within a system, such as a website app or a brand identity. It encompasses the design and the use of these elements to communicate ideas, actions, or concepts effectively to a broad audience without the need for words. The Olympic Games is a really good platform for discussing iconography because, in this instance, the visual language needs to be understood by people from many different cultures and demographics, which underlines the importance of making their iconography universally understandable. But with that said, it's equally important that the iconography of the Olympics celebrates and pays homage to the cultures of the country that's hosting that Olympics, because hosting an Olympics provides a unique opportunity for countries to showcase themselves to the world. As such, there is often a lot of thought put into iconography used in the Olympic Games as designers seek to clearly communicate the various aspects of the sport to a universal audience, but to do it in a way which celebrates and communicates information about their culture and values. The Mexican Olympics, for instance, only used parts of the athlete's body or equipment to represent the whole sport. This was inspired by pre-Hispanic glyphs, which represents an important aspect of Mexican culture. The Sydney Olympic Games sought to incorporate Indigenous elements such as the boomerang, so to pay homage to the First Nations people within their iconography. Now, one important thing to note before I get started is that the Olympic iconography is often referred to as pictograms. This is correct, they are also pictograms because they always show a literal depiction of the sport. Icons can also do this, but icons are different because they can also include more metaphorical references and symbols, such as a heart shape representing love or a trash button representing delete. So they're somewhat interchangeable, just with minor differences that are important to remember. All right, so I'm going to start with this Sydney Olympics one. Now, one of the things you'll notice with this, with the shapes that have been used, they include lots of kind of rough edges. So you've got some smooth edges here. You've got like really rough edges around the side. You've kind of got this almost painterly sort of earthy aesthetic going. But interestingly with these smooth edges too. So let's have a look at a few different ways we can achieve this aesthetic. Now, the first one is we've got our little artboard, which is a square. We're going to draw our little square like so, just keeping it a bit inside so that you've got a little bit of room to work with. Now we're just going to hit the eye button in this instance to eyedropper some blue. Now the first way we might just attempt to do this is kind of an automated way by going Effect, and let's go Stylize. Oh, maybe not. Let's go Distort and Transform, and we'll just click on this Roughen button. So you can kind of see how much of an effect that's had. Obviously, this is way more angular than this really quite subtle thing. So if we drop that to say 1%, that's looking much closer, and we could probably just bump up the detail to kind of make it a bit more organic. Actually, no, we'll bump it down. Yeah, there we go. And we might just click smooth as well. So that's just going to round it off because these are pretty smooth edges. So let's change that to say a 10. Oh no, maybe a 15. And we'll just click OK there. So look, it's sort of done the trick. So that's one way to do it. So just going to that effect and then distort and then roughen and just kind of playing with some of them. You might be pretty happy with that effect, but let's try a couple of other things too. I'm now going to click and hold on this one. Now, if you can't see that, it's going to be down here. So you're going to click and hold on this, and we're just going to click on this perhaps wrinkle tool. So it's that one there. Now, you just click once and you can kind of see the effect that that's having. Now, something you will note is you can see that it's only, and I'll just zoom in a bit here. You can see that it's only sort of changing that up and down, which isn't really what we want. So we can double click on this wrinkle tool. We can perhaps reduce the global dimensions to say 30. The intensity, I think 50 is fine. And we'll change the horizontal to 100 as well. So that's just going to get the sides as well. And look, we can just keep clicking around with these and sort of find something that's going to work. But if we just sort of click now, you can kind of see. Now, one of the benefits of this method is that you have a lot more control. So you can kind of, make these corners perhaps a little more extreme and then a few smooth bits. And that kind of creates that more rugged kind of aesthetic. So I think in this instant, the wrinkle tool is more effective than using an effect. All right, so now we're going to try to create this boomerang shape, and it's going to be effectively the same thing. So one thing that you can do is, if you're not familiar with the Bezier tool, you can actually just click like so, and just create a square of what you're trying to produce. And then what you can do is you can click on your little white select tool here and just click on each node and just round them off kind of individually. So I just held the shift to connect both then. So that just gives you a lot more control. Just if you're not that familiar with the Bezier curve and you just sort of, want to have a little bit more control over, how that all works. So it might be something like that. And then, you could kind of just keep going with that. So that's given us a nice shape. Now I'm just going to hit the I button again and then just click on the white to make this white. Now, similar thing I can do there is I can just grab this wrinkle tool now, and because you can kind of see it's just the inside that's been wrinkled there. So that's effectively going to get you over the line for that. Now it'd be a similar case with the arms. I'm just holding Alt and dragging here and holding Shift while I resize that. And then you're basically just going to grab that. We've got a kind of similar one here. So you just can click like so. And then you're just going to grab this one and you can just round them off. Now the other option is, of course, your Bezier curve. Now, both are really effective options. It just kind of depends on how you like to work, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. I won't continue with that. I'll just quickly show you the alternate method, which is to use the Bezier curve in that more traditional way it's used by sort of clicking once till we got our tail and then just clicking and dragging to create those curves. Now, both are pretty effective in their own way. Really just use the method that you kind of think works for you. I've kind of got the form a little bit wrong there. Actually, if I just rotate that, that's almost perfect there. And just grabbing your wrinkle tool after that, making sure that it's not too big. So see how that's affected that, which you want that kind of smooth outline there. So that's the Sydney Olympic one. The only other thing is we've got this stroke here as well. So what we would do for that is, again, probably just nice and straight. Now, let's even simplify this even more. So I've literally just created this kind of J shape here. If we were to switch these over to create that, I could actually now just click on these little inside ones with my little white tool, make this this hockey stick shape by like clicking and dragging in those little circular nodes. Now I can go to my stroke, window stroke, if you can't see that, stroke, and I'm just going to pump it up. I'm going to click on show options and give it a rounded edge. So you can kind of see we've got this nice kind of candy cane shape, and I'm going to go Object, Path, Outline Stroke. So that turns that stroke into a shape. I can now reverse this, and you can kind of see how that's creating that hockey stick now. Now, there's a few different things I can do. I can go to my stroke, maybe make it a bit thicker because it looks like perhaps 1 point, maybe 2 point, if you were to just kind of compare the stroke widths here. Now this I might be able to use my little apply roughen there. And you can kind of see how that's created this kind of painterly aesthetic. I could probably also try to use my crystallize. Now you can see that that's getting pretty extreme. These are only really subtle kind of changes. So if I was to use this wrinkle tool, I'd need to double click on it. I'd probably bump up the detail and drop that intensity to say 10%, so that each click just makes these really subtle kind of changes. So see how it's just a little bit wobbly there. Now, these little points that are occurring here are called miters. We can avoid that by clicking on our stroke here, and we're gonna, in this corner here, we can just round off those corners. Instead of telling it to be a point, we can just round that join. So that kind of gets us something pretty similar to that. Now, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I won't go through the process of continuing that to get this whole image, because effectively creating that is just going through those steps and then putting it all together. And then you can just use those same elements and those same systems for all of the other sports as you continue on. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is the Paris Olympic pictograms, which were really cleverly designed in my opinion. They sort of have this 4-point symmetry which they've incorporated, which I think kind of plays on playing cards in some ways, but their rationale was kind of a little bit more around representation of the coat of arms. So it sort of represents this kind of monarchy kind of heritage, because that's a strong part of their history, obviously leading up to the revolution. So yeah, so I think it's really cool and interesting. It's been criticized because they're a little bit abstract. Like so some of the designs they're not as clear, nowhere near as clear as a lot of the existing pictograms. So I think they kind of challenged some norms here, but I like these as well because they incorporate some really nice figure and ground. So you can kind of see with the edge of these horses kind of blending into the ground, like the ground impacts the figure. There's also that Gestalt principle of closure as well, that it sort of creates the illusion of this square. So there's a lot of clever things happening, and I think that kind of makes it memorable. Let's go ahead and we'll try to emulate some of these styles. Now, a lot of these styles, so you can see they've incorporated these very geometric shapes here. So in order to achieve that, we're going to use, you guessed it, geometric shapes. So let's start by, we'll click and hold and create a square. And let's just give ourselves a blue background again. Eyedropper to get the blue. And now let's create one of these horses. So you can kind of see if you create a little circle here. So I've clicked and held on this, clicked on my little circle. Basically, that's pretty much it. You've created your little circle there. I'm going to hit the I to get my P button to get this sort of pink color. And now I'm going to click and hold and create a square. So what this is drawing me into is the Pathfinder tool. Now, this is actually a semicircle because it turns into kind of a, I've forgotten the word, like perhaps a rhombus? Not sure. But we're just going to break this into a semicircle here by drawing a square over the top of it. I'm going to select both and then open up my Pathfinder. So if you can't see it, which I can't either, Window, Pathfinder. Oh, let's bring it down here. And I'm just going to minus front. Now, if the opposite happens, if you happen to draw the square first and did this, your minus front's going to remove the circle from the square. So if that's happening, you just want to make sure that your square, the thing that you're trying to cut from it, you want to right click and just go Arrange, Bring to Front. So hovering both of them, just click the square. And now let's make our little horse head here. So I'm just going to draw that with a square, with a rectangle here. Now you can zoom right in. We don't really need that anymore. And if you've got your snap on, that should just snap really nice and neat to the top. So that's going to be in your window view. And just turn those smart guides on. And that's going to create your snap. Yeah, so try to do that. Further that, you can scroll down, and there's also, you probably can't see it because it's off screen, there's snap to grid, snap to pixel, and things like that. So you can view, and you can just set your snaps and just kind of have a bit of a play around with those. But basically, that creates a little horse's head. You just need to grab this little direct select tool here, click on a point, and you're just dragging it down. You can do this by eye. You can trace it if you want, but it's not really the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise is to learn how to create your icons by emulating existing icons. So that would create that. And this little point here, you would probably just draw that with your pen tool. So click once, twice, and drawing that pen tool there. And then the I button to do that. Now, to create this figure and ground, you're probably going to want to consider just drawing a square. So holding the Shift button, let's just color that something different for now. So I've drawn a square in the inside, which my horses are going to sort of circle around. Now I want to select this horse. Now I can marquee select. That's going to select all this other stuff as well. So I need to hold Shift then to deselect the things I don't want to select. Now, if I want to make sure that these are always in a group, I can hit Control G for group. Or if I'm pretty happy with this shape and I want to merge them all together, get my little Pathfinder friend out again and just click this one, Unite. So that's kind of got my horse shape. Now you can kind of see that it's a bit big, so I'm just going to shrink it down and zoom in a bit, make sure that that's kind of in place there. Going to click and drag holding the Alt button to duplicate it. Right click, transform. I know that's off screen for you, but right click, scroll down to transform and then go reflect and then click OK. And then you're going to hold select both of them, drag them down like that. Hover over this corner here, holding the Shift button and just rotate that so that you kind of end up with this square. Now you can also, if you want to be a little bit more precise, you need to zoom in, and that gives you a lot more control. If you try to do it from out here, you're not going to get that exact control. But yeah, if you zoom in, you can really just make sure that it's spot on perfect. Now, that's pretty much it as far as that goes. You can then just delete your square and you've got yourself this. Okay, so I'll just show you the one more little thing, and that's these wavy bits here. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm going to recommend just the one because, yeah, this particular way, it's not just going to get you the waves, but it's a great little system in which to carry the rest of the design. So you can kind of see that these are very symmetrical and repeating. You can see 1 lump, 2 lump, 3 lump, 4 lumps. So, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So kind of 5 ups, 4 ups and 5 downs. So if that kind of makes sense. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to draw a square like this, and I'm going to click and hold and select them both, holding the Shift button, click and hold to duplicate that, click and hold again. And each of these, so we're going to end up just drawing a zigzag. So up, down, up, down, up, down, and then up and down again. So now why I'm doing this is going to make sense in a sec. So let's just put that like so. I'm going to zoom in a bit more and I'm going to make, oh, you can see there's a bit of an overlap there. That hasn't snapped in perfectly. Yep. I'm going to make this a little bit, just say like a 0.25 so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So the reason I've done that is it creates the bounding box for what I'm about to do, which is to basically go up and create a little zigzag like so. So this is just using grid, so creating a grid and then kind of working to it. So that creates that zigzag. Now what I'll do is I can go back to this and I'm just going to move that zigzag up. And now I'm going to grab my little white select, and now I can just drag and drop that. And it's going to create my little lines. Now these lines kind of go out by moving that way, so I could probably consider just bringing that up to the middle here. And then just selecting that one, maybe something like that, to create that sort of that finish of the wave. Maybe that's going maybe a little bit more down. Yeah, how would I do that better? Yeah, I suppose it's yeah, no, it would probably be maybe just adding those little bits like that, and then clicking on those. So that's just extending it out just that little bit to, you know, perhaps create the finishes. I'm not sure how well I did that, but hopefully you get the idea. So I'm just going to delete this one here, and that gets me my wave. So I can bump the stroke weight up for that. Maybe make it this pink again. So I hit the eyedropper and then click on that. You can see that's filled it, which means you just need to go back now and reverse that. And now to create the blend over here, what I'm doing is I've clicked on this and I just hit Alt and then dragging it down. It's not working anymore. There we go. Oh, it is. Yep. Down to here. Now there's a couple of things I could do. Like I could literally just use my little guide, so you can kind of see those little sort of smart guides coming up. That's one way to do it. Otherwise, I can delete that and use my blend tool to do effectively the same thing. That's this one over here. And I'm just going to click on this top one and then click on the bottom one. And that just creates these sort of ripples. So it just basically just duplicates it. And the benefit of that is it always makes sure that it smoothly does it. If you wanted to reduce the number, we just double click on the blend tool again. We can change it to specified steps, and we could perhaps reduce that to 2. So that effectively will get us there. The rest of that, these things, all just sort of similar variations of those same techniques. So that will get you your icons. You can export them as PNGs. Typically, icons like this, if they appear on a website, will probably be SVGs, which are basically scalable vector graphics is what it represents. And basically, it's the only kind of vector graphics that Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge understand. So if you want them to remain really crisp and scalable, then you're saving them as SVGs. If you want them to be a bit smaller and less heavy on the computer's load, you just export those as PNGs and kind of use them from there. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a rundown about creating that iconography. All of the iconography is just using those systems, so learning those tools and just using those systems over and over again to create the aesthetic that you want. Good luck and happy iconography designing.